My name is Dimitri. I'm the product owner for OP5 Monitor. So a couple of words about me. I spent about 15 years in software development, mainly in software engineering positions, and then I later switched to product management. And mainly I was working with virtualization, cloud domain, OpenStack, and so on. So today I will... yes, but the thing is that the sound will go to that room as well. That's what I was told.
Oh, okay. We can just have it for the mic.
Okay. So I will go through the product update, the development update for version 8. And so I will cover some of the new features that we are preparing for the new release, as well as generally what we've been up to and what we are going to work on going forward. So I will start with auto discovery. We've been receiving a lot of requests from our users that would like to jumpstart with Monitor as quickly as possible. Let's say they have thousands of devices and they don't want to manually onboard these devices for monitoring. So auto discovery would help them to automatically scan their networks, understand what are the devices and what types of devices are in the network, and onboard these devices automatically. So architecturally, it right now looks like this. The auto discovery feature for us was actually a test of a new way of development. We are migrating towards microservice architectures, and for us this was the test pilot of verifying whether this architecture could work for Monitor or not. And so far so good. It's been quite successful. The first MVP that we deployed worked, so now we are making sure that version 1 of auto discovery will get into the next release of Monitor. So like I said, it's a standalone microservice. It can be used as a standalone service or integrated with Monitor, and of course we provide native integration with Monitor. But if you want to, for example, use auto discovery to regularly update your inventory management system, then you can use the APIs in order to communicate with the service and fetch the discovered devices to import them in your system, whatever the system is. The benefits, like I said, quite easy way of onboarding and jump starting with Monitor, but also if you have, let's say, ephemeral environment, quite dynamic environment, then you want to catch the fluctuations in your network. You want to be able to understand what devices are in, what devices are out, especially if we are talking about virtual machines. So you kill virtual machines, you spin up new, and you would like to catch this fluctuation in the network as quickly as possible.
Excuse me,
Okay.
but we need some camera.
So what about
Sound.
the others?
The others, no, they won't hear because we just canceled the sound to the other room. So no,
Awesome.
yeah. So we won't use the speakers in here.
Okay,
The
cool.
voice goes
Sure.
into the camera. Yeah, that's why.
Understood. So yes, just to talk about specifics of the service, it consists of two main blocks, the API part and the engine part. And we created a message queue between the two in order to make sure that we can achieve horizontal scalability on both layers. So if we have a lot of requests coming to on the API level, we could clone these processes, clone these services, as many as needed, and then feed this information to the message queue and process it on the engine side. And the Auto Discovery is a library that we are developing that will be responsible for the network scanning. So everything starting from supporting SNMP versions V1, V2, V3, the different network scan method inputs. For example, you want to scan using a seed router. So you specify IP of the router, and then the tool will automatically traverse the network graph and onboard devices along with the relationships of these devices. Or you want to specify a segment of your network, let's say a subnet or a range of IPs. Or you have a fixed list of IPs that you want to scan maybe on a regular basis. So you will have these different ways of feeding information into the tool to get the results of discovery. We've been receiving a lot of complaints about the performance of the VMware plugin that we had, and mainly these concerns were related to the old plugin not being able to work with later versions of VMware, such as version 6 and 6.5. Some functionality wasn't working, as well as performance issues, because it wasn't really fast. Every time we had to make a check, we would initiate connection to vSphere, and then this would take a lot of processing time on the VMware side as well as on the monitor side. So instead we came up with a new architecture that basically introduces a service daemon in between. The service daemon talks to vSphere and also maintains persistent connection to vSphere, so that when we make a check from monitor, we go to this service that already knows that, okay, I have this connection cached somewhere, so I can reuse it for fetching new information. So as a benefit, we have less overhead on the vSphere server. We have much cleaner logs, of course, on the vSphere side, as well as less memory consumption in monitor. And from the features point of view, we cover everything in vSphere. So latest 4 versions. This is due to using a library that VMware develops called PyVMomi. But we also support virtual storage. So if you expand your VMware cluster and to cover not only virtual machines but also virtual storage, you're able to monitor this virtual storage as well. And in the roadmap for future extension of this plugin, we are thinking to add monitoring for NSX, the virtual network side of VMware. Yes. So how many of you have used the API to import devices or export configuration in Niemann? So how fast was this API?
Not so fast.
Not so fast. Yeah. We hear you. It's even worse when we consider large environments, let's say up to or starting from 5,000 or 10,000 devices. This can take minutes, a lot of minutes, but also so the impact is on the configuration export time. The impact is also on the user experience. So when you export something, your user interface basically blocks now in monitor. Not cool, and we understand that. Plus, if there are multiple users interacting with the system, they will also experience delays. They will experience some disruption with the service. So this also tops with the fact that, well, actually we need to restart Niemann all the time when we apply configuration. It's not really monitor's fault. That's how Nagios and Niemann they are designed. So the architecture basically forces to reload configuration by restarting the service and then importing the config files. So the problem actually is broken down into the various components involved in the whole workflow, starting from the user interface, touching the API, touching the configuration export service, which right now is in a coma. And in order to resolve it, we actually addressed it from multiple directions, and we introduced a new service that would export configuration, compile new configuration files asynchronously without you having to wait for this to happen. So what you will do with the new version is that you will send devices for export. You will click save. In the background, the new service will accept your request and work it in a standalone manner. You will not have to wait for receiving any kind of feedback. Once the processing is done, you will get a notification that configuration has been exported. So now let's say we export configuration, but you still need to restart Niemann in order to reload these changes. So what we did is we introduced a caching tool that will retain all the latest information while Niemann is being restarted, so that on the user interface level you retain the same picture of the monitoring of your devices. So in the end, API will be faster. Our initial benchmarks show around 5 to 6 times improvement in speed. The UI interaction will be non-blocking. You don't have to wait for this to finish. You can close the tab and then come back whenever it's convenient, and you will see that everything has been applied. Simultaneous user access will be possible, and you don't have to see this blank page when Niemann goes for restart. So we addressed it we think in the layers which affect user experience. So we're actually hoping that this new service and new improvements will benefit you a lot, because we put a lot of effort resolving this problem. And just to summarize everything, what I mentioned were new features as well as big improvements throughout all the product usage. But of course, we don't only cover that part. We have a lot more in our roadmap. Some of the items are already complete, such as we finalized the whole functionality that is in EL6. Now it's also available in EL7 and it's stable. We also have a lot of stuff related to small fixes and improvements. We just don't put it in the roadmap because it would take probably several pages of content. And because we release every month, you see gradually improvements on the user interface, improvements on the overall stability of the product. And basically I collapsed everything in one initiative, which we called Fixes and Improvements. So what about the timeline? When can you expect all this to be available? Well, our estimation is right now, Q3 2018. So we are targeting mid-July to complete everything and make the first release available for everyone. But things can happen, right? So we need to cover also the potential buffer that we might have some delays. So Q3, targeting July, but might be also a little bit late. Right. So that's concerning major release 8, which has been already planned. So what's next? We've been brainstorming and looking in our backlog for the feature requests, some complaints that customers have, and we compiled a very rough list of ideas or directions where we can also make a lot of improvements or completely change user experience, such as dashboards, for example. We realized that dashboards are used in multiple contexts. It's not only looking at your laptop or looking at the big screens. There are different users interacting with monitor in different ways. So for us, it's important to make sure that whatever your role is when you interact with monitor, you are able to get the best user experience you can have. We don't stop with auto-discovery on version 1, like I have described previously. So in continuation of this development, would like to, of course, improve the service scan and then consolidate all the different scan tools that we have in monitor in one service. So this work will continue, as well as refactoring core, which is a very dangerous endeavor, I must say, because touching Niemann and Merlin at this point, it is like open heart surgery on monitor. But we realize that we have to do this in order to make sure that we can adapt to the growing environments. Your customers have bigger and bigger environments and more virtualized environments. So in order to catch these fluctuations in your infrastructure, you might scale out your application and this will add 30 virtual machines for 2 hours. And then you scale in and you remove this machine. So in order to catch that and to be able to provide best monitoring capabilities, we need to make sure that we can dynamically work with this data. And for that, I think refactoring the core is something that we will commit to going forward. I will not go through all these items here, but I would like to ask you to come up with something that we could make in order to improve your experience with monitor. So what is this something? What is this feature or maybe improvement or a fix that we can do just to facilitate a better user experience with the product? So if you can do that, please send me an email, and I'll be very helpful to accommodate all this feedback, and this will basically help me plan for the future releases of the product. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say that I'm super excited about the improvements in the API you mentioned. Do you have any data on like speed improvement or?
Not yet. We haven't run full benchmarks for now. We just did. So the algorithms that right now we are testing, they have already shown improvement, quite dramatic improvements in configuration expert. Now, I can't give you the numbers. I can only speak about by how much would improve. 5 times, 5 to 7 times right now. It could be more, but I can't really say for sure. But you mentioned the APIs. What I want to emphasize is that we realize that the world of software interaction is growing, and being API driven is the most important thing right now for any kind of software. So any improvement, any refactoring, or any new feature that we will provide going forward will always have a REST API that you can use in order to integrate with your workflows, to facilitate automation, or maybe remove you from the loop to make things happen without human interaction, if you will. So REST APIs generally are very important for us, and we make sure that we will provide them with every new functionality that we release. Any other questions? Yeah?
While we were talking about configuration cache or proxy, I don't remember the correct name.
Yes.
Do you expect that issues with, for example, Nagvis maps that were broken during the save process on other screens?
Yes.
Do you think that it will help?
Yes, it should, because it is essentially what we do is we cache the live status data.
Okay.
So
and
if this data is basically the source for the rest, for the graphs and basically all around the user interface. So as long as we manage to maintain this data available for the rest of the system, then the maps and everything else should be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any more questions? I haven't timed this, to be honest. I'm not sure how much I spent on the presentation. Was it more or less? But I didn't want to stretch this. I thought that this information would be more relevant for you guys.